Recording. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Apprentice Worldwide webinar. Woo-hoo! Everybody go. All right, I'm excited to be here because I get to see my friends online. That's the funnest part of all. But today, we have a very special webinar. We're going to talk about blurred lines, relationships at work. But before we talk about this topic, and today's going to be a great thing because I have one of my co-anchors here, Astrid Escobar, who I'll introduce in a little bit. She's one of the sponsors as well. And we are going to talk a little bit about these things we call relationships at work and how we can have productive ones and we can have some that are a little, out of hand. So just to call them a little something fun. But before we do that, let me share my screen real quick with a few things that I wanted to bring up to you guys. So the first thing I'm going to share is, can you see my screen, everybody? All right, if you can, I want to talk to you first about the upcoming webinar. So what we decided to do is, we meaning there was a committee of a few of the associates and apprentices that selected these topics. And these topics we will be discussing hopefully every 2 weeks. Everybody will be able to hear somebody speak in front of a computer at around 8 o'clock every other Monday. So for now, the first one that we have today, we're going to talk about the blue section on the bottom here. It says strategies at work. And the first topic is blurred lines, relationship at work. So that'll be today. Then we will jump to business world acumen, where a friend of ours is going to talk about the 2018 tax reform. And then we will go either with the red or with the yellow, and then back again with the blue. So you see how this is going to work. We're going to try to rotate so that we have different discussions. Also, I wanted to share a few things before I forget. I want to make sure that everybody knows that although we're almost done with the month of February, we're really starting the year at Apprentice Worldwide. Everybody's kind of busy planning what they're trying to do at their work. So this is how it usually happens. We're used to it. Most of the things start picking up around March, April, and then the summer is full with activities. And then we end with, at the end of the year with a lot of festivities around the Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and everybody meeting around the world. So I want to give a big shout out to the people in Dallas. We just started meeting a few weeks ago. So Dallas, welcome to the team. We have a few people in San Francisco that are starting, and we have somebody in Canada that just joined us as well, and we keep growing. So hopefully this will continue as the years go by, and we're building our network one leader at a time. And I mean this. We try to be very selective about the people that join our program because we're trying to build something special where everybody can share the benefit of spending quality time with each other and learning different skills. So the other thing that we're going to be focused on is going back to the universities to try to recruit more seniors. Why? Because that's the original intent, was to help people that are seniors transition into the real world. And we're going to try to put a little bit more focus on that. If anybody wants to volunteer and help out in the different universities around the world that are close to you, or your alma mater, the universities that you went to school in, if you want to help out and recruit some top leaders, future leaders, please let me know, and then we'll put you in the right team to do that. All right. So, is everybody there still? Go like this. All right. So, I want to talk to you about something that, so obviously blurred lines, relationships at work. So one of the books that I read a few years ago was this one called The Speed of Trust. Can you see this? So The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. And Stephen Covey, for those of you that know, he used to do the Franklin Covey. He used to be the one that used to make those agendas that we used before having iPads. We had these agendas to keep track of our day. But one of the things that I like about this book particularly is The Speed of Trust, is the fact that we try to build relationships to accelerate things that happen in our lives, right? The better we know the people, the faster we can do things. And these things happen around work a lot, right? So the more you build trust with people, the better it is to have deep and meaningful relationships that will last for a long time. So I'm going to bring up a little diagram that you see here. And it talks about when you trust somebody, you trust them because they're competent at doing something, and you trust them because they're trustworthy, right? They have character. And these things are interesting because it talks about character and competence. No? So one of the things that we know at the beginning when we interview somebody is we know the competence based on the history. So we understand that they have a certain set of skills, knowledge, and experience. And, outside of the market, if you don't know that person, so you talk about reputation, credibility, and then performance. So if they were a top performers, you get to build upon this side of the equation. So you give people the benefit of the doubt based on these certain characteristics, right? But then you start making your own opinion based on things that people work on a day-to-day basis with you, right? So integrity and intent. But what is the motive? Is the person transparent? What is the behavior of the person? Are they authentic? Are they fair and honest? And, if the more you build on these things, the more your character is no longer questioned, and the more people can trust you, right? And this is the basis of all relationships that we have with our bosses, our coworkers, and our subordinates. So on this today, based on relationships, I want to focus on these three levels of relationships. By the way, and I'm gonna stop, probably around 8:30, and then continue at 8:30 on with other examples of things, specific examples of things that happened to me, and then Astrid, who's here as well, can share some of her experience, and then we're gonna have some Q&A later on. But the first thing that I want to share is relationships with our bosses, right? So I remember starting in my career, and obviously I dealt a lot with people that were my own age, right? For very, very many years. And then coming in college, was an interaction. I was part of a business fraternity called Alpha Kappa Psi, and we learned how to deal with people that were around our age. But then I started joining, starting at work, and had to deal with people that were 10 years older, 20 years older, 30 years older than I was, and tried to establish relationships that were meaningful, that will allow me to grow in my work, right? And for me, it was important to build that trust so that they would allow me to do other things at work. So whether it was for me to finish doing analytical work and enter into doing sales, because I didn't like so much to spend time, behind a desk. Some people love it. I don't like it. So building that transitioning over to sales was really my thing. So obviously, I wanted people I wanted to build that trust in my superiors, so they allow me to do that. And another funny thing is, when I started in a program, in an analyst program, and it happens everywhere. So obviously, most of the companies, big companies, they have some sort of program, some sort of filtering process right after you graduate college, so they can level set on what it is that is the priority at that particular company. So it's not dissimilar from my experience. It happens in different organizations as well. They're trying to show you the way that people work in that company. So the first, probably 1 to 2, 3 years max, they try to teach you a few things. But the other thing is, obviously, I competed with people my age for my position, the position that I had when I joined the bank. So then I come into this organization and realize, look at to my left and look at to my right, and realize that there's pretty smart people around me that are my age, that obviously, in order to make an impact, do I compete with them? Do I work with them? What do I do, right? And at the beginning, so probably the competitive nature started happening, right? At the very beginning, it was all about, how can I shine? And then I quickly realized that I couldn't live in a vacuum in a big company. So I had my role, and somebody had their role. And the more that we worked together, and I released that fear of competition, the more I could, it would allow me to do other things, right? And then last but not least, as I started moving up in the organization, then my bosses would ask me to deal with individuals that are starting in their business. So they saw these skills, and for me to try to help the next generation, whatever it would be, either the person immediately after me or few years after, to train them. And these interactions sometimes, as an older person, do I give them all the knowledge that I have to try to build them up, or do I give them enough knowledge that I keep them still dumb enough, right, quote unquote dumb enough, that they don't overtake or overpower my position and are able to do the job much better than I am, right? So that's the BS sometimes that we have to deal with at work. So my relationship with the people that are underneath are critical for me to multiply my efforts. And as a multiplier, the better you're at duplicating or triplicating your skills to other people, the more your organization can grow and the better it is for everybody, right? But at the beginning, as people start and they feel comfortable with their managerial roles, it's hard, right? So now that I leveled a little bit about these 3 levels, I want to talk about different examples, and I'll let my friend Astrid, we're going to share some stories about things that happened to us to see if we can put these things in perspective. So, Astrid, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay.
So why don't you introduce yourself first?
All right. I know I have met some of you, but I'm Astrid Escobar. I work at Bank of America in the implementation team. We're the team that transitions clients from the sales pipeline into the production environment. So that's our goal. We have a large team that works with Latin America. It's a very interesting position at the bank. You gain a lot of knowledge, and it's very exciting, but it's a lot of hard work. And I met Hernan a few years ago. I actually am right now celebrating 6 years at Bank of America. I had worked in banking before, and was wanted to return to Miami Hernan interviewed me for this position. It was a position that was a dual role to work with the trade team, which Hernan was director of at the time, and the implementation team. So it was a sort of an experiment that worked, and I'm still there. I have worked in a lot of companies for a long time. I mean, I have worked at several companies, so I have had experience with a lot of different cultural environments in companies, and the way that relationships work are very different in corporations, even when they might be in the same type of industry, in the financial industry. You are going to find situations that, or environments that you would imagine they would be the same, but because of a lot of different circumstances and factors, you're going to have different responses from individuals to similar situations. But we'll get into that in a little bit further
Yeah.
into the discussion. I'll give it
Well,
back.
thank you, Astrid. So, and I wanted to bring Astrid to bring a little bit of perspective, because we worked together so closely for a few years, and you know, we have a common set of experiences that we had as well with our colleagues, and you know, we don't want to name a specific people, but I'm gonna talk about different circumstances that I saw at my work environment, that I want to make sure that everybody it is aware and tries to, you know, do things a little bit better. So one of the things that I want to start with is relationships with your boss, right? So this person who's your boss probably started like you, right? And but was given these responsibilities to be in charge. Some of them are great bosses. A lot of them are really bad bosses and require training as well, right? So that is clear. Probably you see more bad bosses than good bosses. But still, you have to have a relationship with them, because you're gonna get them out of the way, right? You either work with them or you get yourself out of there. So I don't know, Astrid. So obviously, you and I worked together. I was your quote unquote boss, right, for a little bit, and but you know, in difference from probably, and you notice the difference between you know, our relationship and how we build it, and I showed some examples of things that you did for me. For example, you know, I talk about your skill set. I already knew that you had a certain set of skill set, but then with time, you build that character integrity part that I showed you before, right? And then I started trusting you more, right? And we started building a good teamwork, right? Now, how did you deal with, you know, your bosses, me and other people that were your bosses? I know you have bosses there at the bank. What are some advice you can give people in dealing with your bosses?
All right. So as Hernan mentioned, you're going to find yourself in in different situations. Not every boss is a great boss. Not every boss is a bad boss. I think it's very important to make certain that you understand where the individual is coming from, and you want to maintain a relationship that is very professional with your boss. Make sure that you are understanding what you're being asked to do, what the common goal is. So when a project comes to you, you want to understand, you basically want to use project management skills and that's one thing that it's a really great skill to gain, project management, because when you're talking to your boss, you want to understand what the deliverables are, and understand what your timeline is and the tools that you are going to be given to work with on making these deliverables happen. Now, as Hernan mentioned, you are going to have bosses that are basically going to give you projects where those things he doesn't even understand. He, and I'm saying he or she, might not even know what those deliverables are. So if you are skilled in project management and you can outline a project, you are going to be able to help this individual provide that information to you. He sometimes has deliverables of his own that were a project that was given to him, but he doesn't even know how to execute it. He or she doesn't know how to execute it. So if you are able to put a project together and outline these things and identify that the tools that are needed for your project, your timeline, and be able to write that out and say, okay, so I understand what you're giving me. So you might sit down with them, have this conversation. A good boss will be able to basically give all this to you, and you have it very clear cut. A boss that is not a great boss will basically just say, oh, we need to create this report that is the sales report, and you might, or I mean, I'm oversimplifying the sample, but so you want to know, okay, what's the data that is going to be in there? Is it are you going to be talking about numbers? Are you going to be talking about profits? Are you going to be talking about pipeline? Are you going to be talking? So basically, you going back to project management, if you are able to understand how you manage a project, you can sit down with someone and turn a bad boss into a good boss.
That's great advice, and she's absolutely right. There's sometimes when you're a boss, you're not looking for you're not necessarily looking for a specific answer to come from, you know, that I myself, I'm the boss, that I myself I'm looking for an answer. No, I am looking for uh, we're multipliers. The best bosses are multipliers, are people that you know, can do the research, can do the work, but know that if they have somebody that is just as intelligent or better and put them in a particular task, instead of them having to spend that time doing that, they take their best people and get that information done faster, and can make decisions to mold the 80% and take it to the 100% done. So he's going to get from you 80%. And one of the things that I want to share with you, which is something that is one of the things that pisses me off the most as a boss. And I know some people here that report to me, so and they report it to me. But one of the things that piss me off the most as a boss, and this you need to understand, is lazy people, right? Lazy people. And what are lazy people to me? People that are waiting for me to do the work for them, right? So Hernan Mayo is not going to do the work for anybody else. This is why you hire people to do the work, right? So if it takes away from my time in dealing with the organization and the other people, then obviously, why do I have you, right? So the thing that I'm going to tell you, all of you, is the number one thing that will impress your bosses is called initiative. It's called taking, you know, whatever it is that you have in your brain that can add value to the work that is being done and try to do that, right? And again, I said 80%, right? You're never going to get to 100% because everybody has a different way of thinking. But, you know, you will take it with the help of the manager, you'll take it to 100%, right? And then you'll realize that's going to be a multiplier effect as I train you to become managers, right? As I train you to become managers, I don't expect you to do the work. I expect you to manage the people that are going to do the work, because I think you are smarter and you can have multiple people working on different aspects. Okay, and like Astrid said, you might have a big project, but there's sub projects that need to be done, right? And the big projects and big organizations are not handled by you. You're just doing your task, right? And then you become a multiplier. The down in the lower levels of the organization, you help them gain the skills so that they can take it to at least to the point where the person that's on top of you can grab it and move it up to the next level. So advice in relationships with your bosses is have initiative. Now, let's talk about the difficult part, which is I want to talk about inappropriate relationship with bosses, because there's great relationships, right? But there's also inappropriate relationships. I worked in an organization where, when I started in early in my career, where the receptionist happened that a few receptionists and a few of the secretaries had relationships with their bosses that were inappropriate. Okay. And where probably the people that were involved were not aware that everybody else knew, but everybody else knew, right? So this I share with you so that you understand that although people might not be talking to you, they still talk about you, okay? So your actions are very important. So one of the things that I do, and I will continue doing till the end of my days, is if I ever have an office, you will never see me close my door at my office when I'm with an associate, okay? If I'm gonna have a meeting, and I'm gonna have a meeting that is private, I make sure that I open the door and talk lowly, or go to a meeting room that has glasses as well, unless there's a third party. I don't know, Astrid. So obviously, we've had these discussions before. Probably when you were a little younger, there were a few bosses that were inappropriate, no, in the way that they handle their relationship with you. What did you do? I don't know if you do anything if that happens, but how did you deal with that?
Well, it's happened. These things happen. Fortunately, I guess I'm one of the few for with the jokes. I haven't had so many of these experiences where a lot of people have been inappropriate, but these things do happen. It happens to men, it happens to women. Sometimes it's very important that these things are happening now with the movements, the Me Too movement, and all these individuals are now being more empowered to be able to understand that no one should have power over you in a way that puts you in a situation where your job might be put on the line if you get approached. So it's very important that people are being public about these experiences. It's very important to know that you are able to say no. Understand your company's HR policy. And be able to understand that there's individuals that you can go to, that you can report inappropriate behavior. At sometimes you are going to find, I know that part of the conversation that we're going to have is not every relationship will be inappropriate. So we'll talk later about when you do find individuals in the organization that you might be interested in having a relationship with. It's not that you cannot not have a relationship with an individual or within a company. It's that you should never be approached inappropriately, and that if somebody does do that, you do need to report it. You do need to understand what your resources are. Luckily, we're all, or the individuals within our group are looking for work or are working in organizations that have HR departments. You can go to those departments and report these individuals. Um, and if you're working in smaller companies, you can reach out to somebody who's at that other individual's level. The important thing to understand is that no one should be trying to put their hand in the wrong place or talk to you about things that you're not supposed to be talking about at work. The best way to handle that is to always handle yourself professionally at work, and not initiate conversations that might later be perceived by someone as an open as opening the door. I'm not saying that necessarily happens. Some individuals, you might be the most professional person in the whole entire world, and they will still think that they can approach. I have friends that has happened to, and it's almost unbelievable, because if you know this person, they're the typical all business. So it can happen to anyone. It could happen to men. And just know that there's resources out there and individuals you can reach out to. HR department, other individuals that are along the same lines as so if it's somebody above you, and you might not have an HR department immediately there, you can go to somebody who's in the same level and talk to them. Smaller companies, it's a little more difficult, and but there's also things that can be done legally. No one should ever try to do anything that goes beyond, above or beyond a professional behavior.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And one of the things that I appreciated is my mentors, and people that even though I move from one organization to another, I keep those mentors close to me, and I'm able to have these dialogues where maybe I don't have a support in my organization, but outside of my organization, I'm able to sit down and talk to them, and they give me some advice where I think it might be a lost case. They immediately give me some advice that opens the door for compromise, or to solve a situation where I didn't think it had a way of being solved. So these are the type of relationships we are trying to build here as well in Apprentice Worldwide, so that you have an opportunity to discuss maybe things that you're not able to discuss at your own jobs, right? And I've had a few interesting discussions, and I give my opinion, and obviously, I put the big disclaimer that my decision is not necessarily the best course of action, but it's some good advice to bounce ideas for you to make a decision later on.
Very good. Very good. I like to say that that's an excellent comment. Don't always feel that it always has to be within your organization. You can reach out to, as Hernan mentioned, to a mentor, a family member that. But again, this should all be appropriate behavior at work.
Well, so talking about sometimes the most the weirdest relationship that we might have at work, and weird, I mean, it's fun, yet at the same time it's the one that can get you in trouble the fastest, which is your coworkers, right? Your coworkers, sometimes you build these relationships that are amazing, and these people become part of your best friends and people that you can trust throughout the years. But understand that some of these things, if handled inappropriately, can affect the environment in your own office. For example, and I'll give you an example of some of the things that happen in some of the offices that I worked on. So obviously, we go to lunch, right? A bunch of guys go to lunch, and these guys happen to be in the same team, right? Well, what if there's a woman that wants to be part of the same team, right? Don't you think that wouldn't you feel left out if all the guys all of a sudden start going to, either going to soccer or going to lunch and excluding the other person, particularly when they're talking about business, right? So, you know, we got to be mindful about our relationships within the context of work, and as long as these things do not affect our work, right? If you're having discussions about work and that person is not included, it can be misinterpreted as people taking advantage and then also trying to damage the reputation of the other person, right? My advice is always, when you have when you have relationships or work, try to be as equitable as possible. Meaning, if you want to hang out with your buddies, hang out with them one day. If you want to but the second day you bring everybody together. The third day you have a discussion, in the lunchroom with somebody else. Again, perception sometimes is important, that everybody sees that you're being, even though you might have an affinity for a certain group of people, because it happens in life, right? We cannot cover the world with one hand. The reality is we're going to have affinity for certain people, but at work there is very little, particularly when it comes to doing work for a large organization. There's not room for mistakes, and mistakes are, everybody should be working together towards a common goal. As a boss, I'm going to be the one that sets the tone for the organization, and not allow for this to happen. Now, what if your boss is the first one that does these things? So, what do you think about that? Did you ever have a boss, Astrid, that basically, didn't give a crap about 90% of the people there and only hang out with their 2 or 3 buddies?
It happens, yeah. It happens. So it's kind of difficult. I think that's why it's important to make sure that you do your work, understand what measures your performance, and be able to document that. You're going to find yourself in situations where the boss might have even hired those other people in their team because they knew each other. These are things that happen all the time, and so you need to understand that they probably hired them because they were friends or family members. I mean, this has happened to me. I have been in places where somebody else, you later find out that is a cousin, or there's nepotism and things of that nature. And what you have to do is understand that these are it's not supposed to happen, but it does, and that you just got to go along and remain professional, deliver what you were hired to deliver, try to excel and try to document what you have accomplished, and make them understand that you do not resent necessarily that they go to lunch together all the time, but for them to be able to understand that you are doing what you were hired to do. You're exceeding as much as possible. And they will in turn eventually see that that you are worth. You're a worthy individual. You're good for the company, and don't necessarily feel resentment that this person is spending lunch, going to lunch sometimes with these other individuals. Just keep doing your work. And however, if you are seeing, and I think we're going to talk about this as well, is that I know that we're going to talk about this as well, that the other individuals are getting promoted, where you are definitely seeing that your performance is much better than theirs. There's avenues that you can also take. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's talk about, the elephant in the room, which is romance at work, right? And I kind of briefly touch about it in sometimes inappropriate matters. But what if you have an affinity for somebody at work, right? And what if that relationship continues to build to the point where you find this person attractive and you want to, you found the woman or the man or whatever of your life, right? At work. How do you handle that situation? Well, I've seen it happen a few times, not that very many, but they all ended up with one of them leaving the department or the division, right? In some cases, the bank completely or the organization completely. In some cases, totally different departments that have no direct interaction with each other or very limited interaction with each other. So I don't know, Astrid. I mean, obviously, when we worked together, there were no. I don't think there were. At least I didn't see any married couple that ended up when we were working together. But we did see some romances, no?
I think so. Yes, so these things do happen. It's inevitable. People work together, you spend time together, you network, you go to networks. So you are going to find, as Hernan mentioned, individuals that you will be attracted to in, not, I don't know, not necessarily right now, but throughout your career. Life changes and you find yourself in different circumstances. Again, professionalism. How are you going to behave in the office? How are you going to behave outside the office? There's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration. What are you expecting out of this relationship? Where is it going to go? Hernan mentioned individuals moving to totally different departments or companies. If it's going to be long term, I have seen individuals working together, maintaining a very professional relationship within the organization, and be either living together or being married. The recommendation would be to have this discussion with the person from the onset. Okay, we work together. You want to feel comfortable, but you want to maintain a very high standard and level of professionalism. And so there's some boundaries that you can both establish. How are we going to behave? How are obviously no public display of affection at the office, and I would say not even in public events. The individuals that come to mind right away, I have even seen them at network events, and they still maintain um, you know very professional demeanor. Whenever you are at a networking event, at a company event, just remember, it doesn't matter that it's outside of business hours, you're still working. You're still working, so um, you still want to behave as you would in the office, even if you've had a couple of drinks or whatever. Just maintain it in a way where it doesn't feel uncomfortable with anybody. You're
Yeah.
going to maybe at some point in this relationship, I know it doesn't sound very romantic, but it may be something that you want to discuss prior to, or once you start dating, once you start having uh, continuous relationship with someone or an established relationship with someone, you want to say, okay, we work together, we're in the same floor, or we're in the same building, or what would ever happen? What would we do if we break up? How are we gonna handle it? Again, you are at work. I don't know if anybody here is independently wealthy that you can not behave professionally in your job and lose your job because you all of a sudden had a lover's quarrel at the office. So just make sure that obviously that you develop relationships with individuals that you know well and that are they don't have a weird they're not going to act strange, and maybe do have that conversation. How are we going to behave, or what's going to happen if we do break up? And if you do break up, maintain it in a manner that everything stays outside of the office. So it can be done. I have seen it done, and people can be professional and be in love at the same time. However, again, I will mention again that you want to understand what your company's HR policy is. Some companies are very, very strict with how the interactions that happen between individuals. There's a lot. I would say that large corporations have a definite no between boss and subordinate relationships. So they have a very clear line where that's not acceptable. Individuals in similar levels or lines of work, it might be okay. And you definitely have to, in some companies, you definitely have to disclose if you are doing work. And I think the bank that I work for has a very high risk culture. So I personally, if that ever happened, I would, if I dated someone and we have a relationship where we can maybe approve something together, I would definitely make sure that I'm not, because later on it could be construed, it could get very difficult. So just know what your company's HR policy is and act within responsibility with the line, obviously always staying very responsible and very professional.
Yeah, and we still have a few minutes, and I want to get to a few Q&A from the people here around to see if we can get to that. Again, I wanna go back to the screen here and share the screen real quick. Let me know if you are able to see this. Astrid, can you see this? Okay. So one of the things that we'll have a further dialogue, we're gonna have another webinar about the do's and don'ts of work-related socializing. Okay, so we're gonna elaborate on things that should be done or that are considered maybe inappropriate with greater detail, that are not necessarily related to relationships that you have on a day-to-day basis, but just some things that happen sporadically that might impact your career if you handle that particular social setting incorrectly. Like if you get drunk in a party or things like that, right? So we're going to have a further discussion. I want to share with you, I had many of these circumstances happen at my work environment. I was at a bank where it just happens that, the person that worked for me, she was my analyst, and we were two bosses sharing the same analyst. And I worked like a year with that person and never noticed anything. And at the end, after I left the bank, somebody told me, no, these two people have been going out for 2 years. And it was the guy that we shared the analyst. And they got married and moved to New York. And, it might be one of the sponsors, who knows? But the thing is that they kept it so professional that only because two people passed by a beach and they saw them together, it became an issue. But if it wasn't because of that, they would have continued their relationship at work, and they would have handled it appropriately. So I think it's good advice what you say, Astrid, to check your policy at work, but also, maintain that level of professionalism and control your desire to jump on top of the person that you like, even though sometimes it might be difficult. Please do so for the sake of your career. This is very, very important. And again, if back to square one, and I want to bring this back up again, how do you handle appropriate relationships, right? And back to this point. So you should build relationships that will take you to build trust, so that your bosses trust you, your coworkers trust you, and your subordinates can trust you as well, right? This is what we should be building. And how do we build that, right? How do we build truthful, meaningful, long-lasting relationships that are going to help you in your career? By doing two things: by building competence and building character. And I bring it right here in this diagram, right? Because I think this book has it down pack nailed. By the way, this book, The Speed of Trust, one of my favorite books in the whole wide world. Read it if you can. It talks about how the majority of the CEOs of companies, what happened to be, they were subordinates, or the mentors brought in their proteges to lead the organizations, right? Because they trusted nobody else but those people to handle their task. So if you're going to build a relationship, a long-lasting relationship that'll impact your career, focus on these things. So obviously your capabilities and building those skills and capabilities, right? Having a great reputation, being credible, knowledgeable, experienced, perform consistently. But look at the other side. What's your character? Are you honest? Are you fair, authentic? Are you transparent, right? Do not appear like you're hiding something. Do you act consistently in an appropriate manner, consistently, right? Not that one day you show up at 10 o'clock in the morning, you consistently are appearing at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, early, and then all of a sudden you go out of whack, and at 10 o'clock you start appearing, and then with your shirt all on top, and unfortunately, in this way, yeah, we can make some mistakes, but the reality is people are looking at your character to build that trust and take you to the next level. Build that relationship that's going to be a positive relationship that's going to take you to the next level. So with that in mind, I think we have 1 or 2 minutes. I don't know who else is still there. So let me stop this real quick. Stop sharing. And then I'm going to unmute all the lines. So everybody's unmuted. So let me see who's there. Can anybody show their camera over here and say hi? Ajá.
Hi.
Hola. Hola, Paola.
Hola. ¿Cómo están?
Paola, ¿cómo estás?
Hi.
¿Qué piensas de todo esto? What do you think about all this? By the way, introduce yourself and tell us where you're at.
Hi, everyone. I work as a lawyer in Citibank. But right now they are selling the consumer bank here in Colombia. So we're like in the Hunger Games that we call. So it's kind of hard with my coworkers. It's really hard, this situation, but I think these tips are good for me.
So good. Excellent.
Yes.
So these things that we shared, they happen at your work, no?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. So obviously
the hard.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, the hard part is with my coworkers. I think my boss is a good boss, and yes, the problem is toxic coworkers. But I think it's because the situation right now.
Yeah, it can be brutal. It can be difficult. Yeah, but again, I think you have to build if your boss is a fair boss, he builds an environment where people can build trust with each other, and as long as everybody keeps it clean, no punching in
Yes.
public or arguing in public, then you'll survive.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you, Paola. Anybody else? Who's there? Daisy, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here, but my phone is on 1% and it might die. But
Hola.
it's a very beneficial call. I found all of these tips very useful, as I can personally say that I see a lot of these things go on in the company, for sure.
Excellent. So you have some strategies that you can put into good practice, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What about Alessandro? Are you there? Batelino.
Oh, sorry.
Alessandro is sleeping. Okay.
Okay.
Let me go down to.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Yeah. How are you?
Good. Alessandro,
Good.
have you seen these things? I know you intern in a few places. Anything sounded familiar?
Yeah. A lot of things. Also, something that I would recommend, addressing, was the fact, like, when you are an intern and you wanna take on a lot of responsibilities, and you cannot manage a lot of those responsibilities. That's something that everyone should be aware of, and you should learn how to say no sometimes and not try to please everyone.
Good comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. That's a great comment, Alessandro, because a lot of times I remember when I was interning, and I would always think, oh my God, if I do this for them, they're gonna see how great I am. And sometimes you get your plate too full. Very, very good comment. And that doesn't necessarily that an opportunity is gonna show up, and you might set yourself for failure if you have overwhelmed yourself with accepting too much responsibility as an intern. Keeping that right balance.
That's right.
Yeah, great comment.
Thank you. And Alessandro is in Miami as well.
Yeah, in Miami.
Great.
Hi,
Laura, Orrego, how are you? I think she's on mute. Hold on.
Hernan, I'm going to have to call I am going to have to say goodbye.
Okay.
Okay.
See you in a bit.
I'll see you in a bit. But it's so great to talk to everyone today. I really appreciate the chance to be with you guys. And I hope to see some of you soon.
Thank you, Astrid.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Gracias, paisa. De una paisa a otra.
Bye, Astrid. Thank you.
What's going on, Laura?
Hi, how are you, everyone?
What did you learn about this whole thing?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you because, you can read about all of this stuff in a book or something, but to actually learn from the experience of people that already been through this situation, it's valuable for us. So thank you. And the other thing is that, I haven't quite worked in a company, but I really feel that the most challenging thing during while you're working for a company is to maintain those relationships and to know how can you be I like how can you have a friendship with someone, but at the same time to know the limits? And for example, everybody says that I'm really like happy, I'm smiling the whole time, and then that kind of behaviors can be mistaken by someone else. So to know how you can manage all of those situations is valuable for me as I'm starting my career.
Great point. Great point. Yeah, obviously, you don't want to be a jerk with people at work, right? But you don't. But that doesn't mean that you are not professional about doing your work, your actual work. It means that you just have another way of dealing with things in a more jovial way. But as long as you're doing your job and and people don't cross the line, you continue doing your work. So it's good.
Yeah, I think it's about finding a balance. Like you can't smile too much, but you can be too serious about it. You need to find that balance, and that's the thing that's going to help you to set those limits.
Well, listen, obviously, and we laugh about it sometimes, but I think we are all of us are beautiful people, right? With great smiles and wonderful, we dress nicely and we're good looking and whatever, right? The reality is that shouldn't be, you're showcasing the best possible you, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you are to be taken advantage of, right? Either. So this is why it's important that people understand that, even though you're a beautiful person inside and out, that this doesn't mean that you are, you're asking for you not to be taken seriously, right? So this is a good comment. I agree. I agree that it's important to keep that in mind. Yeah. Who else? Who's left? Natalie. Natalie from Denver. Are you there? No? Oh,
Sorry, I thought it did work.
that's Natalie. Hey, Natalie.
Sorry, I thought it was working through the computer.
By the way, Natalie is from Miami, and she moved to Denver just recently. So, and she just started with our team probably like a few weeks ago. So she's the newbie. But she's going to be a great contribution a great addition to our team with a lot of experience. And, I'm so happy that I met her through another friend of mine. So welcome officially. So what did you hear any of these things, Natalie? What do you think?
Okay, can you hear me? Is it better
Yes.
now? It's like, okay.
Anything you particularly agree with or want to share?
Can you hear me? Sorry, I don't know if it's working.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, because on my computer it seems like it's not working. But anyways, I think the part that you said about the peers, it really, bosses are one thing, but also your peers. That peer pressure can be tough sometimes, and I think professionalism. Like I remember people would give me a hard time because I wasn't the first one drinking and doing those things, but ultimately I maintained a level of professionalism, whereas I saw people get fired, and that's one thing that you, I guess, are going to talk about in the future. Like people who got excessively drunk at office functions, that doesn't look good. And so just having that sort of self-confidence to even say no to some of your coworkers as well, if they're trying to provoke you into doing things that you don't feel comfortable with, like leaving people out or drinking or partying and doing things like that, or blaming other people for things that isn't their fault. So just, that was something that hit home for me as well.
Yeah. Again, I can't say it enough. Even though you cannot tell that people are looking at you, the more people, if it's whether it's one person or a whole team of people, you're representing the company. They're looking at you whether you're inside the office or outside of the office. That's why you gotta make sure that you these blurred lines. And again, the topic of today was blurred lines, right? How do we unblur them, make them more clear for us to be able to have adequate relationships at work and productive relationships at work. I think I'm missing one person. There's 1786 740. Who's that? Anybody there that we didn't acknowledge? No? Going once, going twice? Okay. Well, listen, I think we had a very great discussion here. This webinar, as all the webinars, they will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So easy. You just type Apprentice Worldwide in YouTube, and they should be there hopefully tonight. So tomorrow it should be there. I'll make sure that it is there. I will share again all the list of the webinars that we have, and obviously we have 16 webinars that we're going to do throughout the year. That's a lot, very aggressive, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do other things, right? So locally, if you want to address anything that is not covered in these webinars in your local team, it would be great. And so we'll continue doing that. I hope that you guys can meet in each one of the cities that you're in, so that you can continue building that network, those relationships build on trust, and that our team keeps growing with good people. So again, I might not be everywhere at the same time, but feel free to invite each other to events, activities, and come up with your own events to add value to each other's lives. And again, I'm blessed to have all of you here as part of my team, and we continue to do this for you. So again, I appreciate it. Let me see if I forget anything, any announcements. So the Millennial Career Expo, write it down. This is our global get together. You have 2 months. Anybody that wants to come from another city around the world, the 27th and 28th of April is our Millennial Career Expo. It's going to be a leadership summit on Friday afternoon, and Saturday a whole day on careers in blank. Careers in technology, in HR, and engineering, and in legal, and what the future holds for those careers, not only in this city, but around the world. And you're going to hear the top speakers in each one of these subjects. It is free for us, for the people from Apprentice, but it's going to be $25 for people that are not in the Apprentice team. And then from college students, it's going to be $10. So, it's going to be a lot of value packed into that day and a half. So again, you can see it online, millennialcareerexpo.com, and we'll share the topics as well with you. Let me see if there's anything else. The book that I shared is The Speed of Trust. Read it. That's where I got that little diagram. Also, I got this book called How to Communicate. Very important as you build relationships with each other. So these books helped me a lot in looking at, when to, and some of the topics here that we're going to discuss, like when to talk and when to listen, and what is more important to do that, and dealing with office politics, all these things. These are some of the topics that I learned. And I think I saw, Laura, you're doing something that is related to this little book that I bought the other day, about hablando something. I saw that you're doing something hablando. What is that?
So Ablango is this project I have with a friend. It's about helping people to improve their communication skills. Sometimes I see people that, well, I study international business, so I see people that is really talented and has skills and that really have the knowledge to be a great businessman or businesswoman, but doesn't have the skill, the ability of communicate their idea, his ideas or his knowledge, or to negotiate, or to just to present and inform, or to have a successful interview. So we are trying to help them to improve their communication skills by training them with these courses we have every Saturday. We're starting this Saturday, actually. We already sold out the event, and we're really happy about it. So I'll let you know how this first event goes.
So that's great. And you do know, and I think I shared with you, and I'll share it again real quick. Let me see. Beep. So obviously, and let me move this real quick, but it says, we have a section on communication skills, right?
Yes.
And I know there's one that you like, and when do I text, call, email, or meet?
Yeah.
When you ask for a raise or a promotion or benefits. But this one, how written, verbal, nonverbal communications impact you, so impact your career. I guess I know now who's going to give that talk.
Well, actually, I'm not the one who gives the training. It's my partner. I'm like the business mind behind my project. But
okay, don't give me excuses. Don't give me excuses. I'll call you in a few months. I'll leave that to one of the last webinars to make sure that you're fully aware of what you're gonna give. But I think I'm gonna assign that one to you as the co-host.
I guess I'm going to say yes then. I can't say no. So okay, I'll do it.
Listen, so I'm very proud of you and of all of you that are doing great work, and again, we'll continue building career momentum and building great relationships that are going to help all of us succeed. So again, thank you, Daisy, Alessandro, the secret person, Natalie, Paola. I'm glad you're here, and for everybody that couldn't join us, you're watching it via the recording. We hope that you join us in 2 weeks for the an explanation about the tax reforms in the United States. And then next month, we're going to talk about something else in that list. But keep watching out for these webinars. They're all for you to keep building those skills, soft skills that are needed for you to succeed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Te veo.
Bye, bye.
Bye. Te estoy apuntando, Laura. Te estoy apuntando.
Bye. Thank you. I'll do that.
Bye. Paola, te van a reunir el mismo. Me avisas. Chao. Daisy, te veo la semana.
Ok, nos vemos.
Alessandro, me debes la lista del Rock City. Bye.